I'm Vicki with Farm Diggity. I'm with Pierce Holt, two-time Super Bowl champion, and now our compadre at the sheepdog world. So thank you for meeting with me. Can you tell me a little bit about your early start in life, about how you got into football?
Sure. I didn't play football until my senior year in high school. I showed livestock and was more involved in FFA. I was our chaplain. And but my brother was a high school football star, and he was very good. And my junior year, which was his senior year, they went to the state quarterfinals, and the town got behind them, and it was real exciting. So I thought, I'm going to give that a shot next year. And so I went out there and played. I wasn't a very good high school player. I was pretty tall and thin at the time, but I really enjoyed it. I liked it. I actually liked hitting people and enjoyed it. Enjoyed the sport, and thought someday if I get a chance, I'll do that again.
So, did you carry on to college in football, or did you go to work, or what did you do?
Well, I went to work. First thing I did was marry my high school sweetheart, my wife Dena, and then I went to work. And she kind of raised me, so she deserves any credit that I get.
And we're going to talk more about how she comes into this sport.
Yeah.
So tell me about how did you become a player then, if you didn't go right on like most kids do, go right from high school to college, and how did you get into football then?
Well, I was working for 3.5 years. I went to work. I worked for my dad farming and worked construction, did everything I could. And my brother went on to college, and he became a really good college football player, was the defensive player of the decade for the team he played on. And I thought, I think I could do that, because I had grown. I went from 6'3", 185 to 6'4.5", 250 pounds in that 3.5 years. Yeah, I was a real late maturing kid, and so thinking that way, I just started calling college football.
You called them?
I did. I called a lot of schools. Called Sam Houston State. I called Southwest Texas State. I called Texas A&M Kingsville, and I finally called Angelo State. And the head coach happened to be there over the Christmas holidays. He answered the phone, and of course he had never heard of me. And he said, "Well, tell me about yourself." I said, "Well, I'm 6'4.5", 245. I played 1 year of high school. I played for a guy named Jimmy Keeling." And he said, "Jimmy Keeling," he said, "I know him." He said, "I'll tell you what, I'm going to give Jimmy a call, and I'll call you back." And he called Jimmy, and he said, "Jimmy, I got this Pierce Holt kid that wants to come play football here." He said, "Well, I remember that kid. He wasn't very big. He had a brother that was a good player." He said, "Well, he's 6'4.5", 250. He said,
he grew up.
He said, "Well, you better sign him." So that's how I ended up at Angelo State. They flew me out there and just offered me a scholarship on the spot, and we loaded up our U-Haul trailer. We both quit our jobs, and we drove to
Dena.
Angelo. My wife and I, Dena. Yeah.
So I just want to point out to everybody at Farm Diggity that he didn't wait around for opportunity to knock. He picked up the phone and called. And in our lives, we have to make it happen, don't we? Grit. I love grit. But you had the guts to call. How did you have that gumption to pick up the phone?
I don't know. I didn't have a lot of confidence when Dena and I got married, and I had a dad that was pretty tough, worked hard, had 4 jobs at one time, but we weren't allowed to say much. And she kind of built that up in me, and kind of maybe gave me the confidence to make those phone calls. And I'm pretty hard-headed, and I thought, well, I really feel like if I make my mind up to do something, that I can do it. My mom always told us that. She was kind of I guess it was a good cop, bad cop deal, but she told us we could do anything, and my dad said, "That's what you're gonna do."
Awesome. So you called, you got signed, now you're playing college ball. and you have a family.
Yes.
You
My
have,
junior year, I had 2 children. Had my oldest daughter was born between high school and when I went to college. We moved out there. Dena started out working, and then her grandmother decided she wanted her to get her degree when we got there.
nice.
So anyway, I wound up in a good place with great coaches. These coaches that I was exposed to had been there 30 years. And the Houston Oilers happened to have their training camp there. So these coaches, they knew about their level and they knew about the NFL level. And they pretty much took me from scratch and turned me into somebody that was able to play in the NFL.
You told me about a coach, Bill Walsh.
Yes.
Is that your NFL coach or your college coach?
He was my NFL coach.
Okay, we're going to get there, so stay tuned and don't quit us now because this is going to get good. But so did you ever think about quitting college ball and just working?
I did. My junior year, my wife became pregnant with our second child, my son Forrest, and so I went in to my coach and I said, "Coach, I'm going to have to quit." I said, I need to go to work. And this is a coach that really knew how to push my buttons, motivated me tremendously, but not by telling me good things.
Is he the beat down guy?
He did. He was hard
okay.
on me. He
All
was
right.
very hard on me. But when I told him that, he said, "Hang on a minute, hang on. You're going to get a chance to play at the next level," which at that time I never really suspected. But coming from his mouth,
Yeah.
then I believed.
Oh, you thought,
He said, "We'll figure this out."
Oh, so you hung in there.
So I hung in there and stayed. Scouts started showing up. I think scouts from every team in the NFL came through there and worked me out. An interesting story is when the 49er scout came in. And I was never a great athlete, but he was watching film. And
you just liked hitting people.
well, no. Well, I wasn't a great athlete. I was hard-headed. So I walked in the film room. He's watching film. He said, "Holt, come here a minute." He said, "I'm going to show you why we're going to draft you." And so there was a play. We were playing a team that was real good. They had a running back that was drafted and played in the NFL also. And they had the ball on the 3-yard line. And he broke the line of scrimmage, and I chased him 97 yards. I never caught him. It wasn't that I tackled him. The guy said there's not many guys that'll chase a guy down the field when they, and so he said that's why we're going to pick you.
You kept going.
I did. The only thing I could do to make up for my athletic ability was to play hard. A lot of my idols were the same way. Randy White, Bob Lilly, those kind of guys that played from whistle to whistle, made a tackle, didn't celebrate, got up and walked back to the huddle and acted like they were just doing the job. I had a coach, the same coach that one time I gave a little fist pump and he said, "Holt, why don't you act like you've done it before?" So.
Wow. Wow. I have a little saying that, and this doesn't apply to you, but I say, if you lack talent, don't likewise lack grit. You can't afford it, right? It's grit. So.
It makes up for a lot.
So you're in college, the scouts are coming. What happened? You got drafted.
Yes, ma'am. They came in, I got drafted. ESPN actually came in because they thought I was going to be a fairly high pick.
Wow.
They shot a deal on me and my wife, and we lived in the married dorm and our kids, and the scouts working me out. They picked me in the second round.
Wow.
Bill Walsh calls me.
This is the coach.
This is the famous coach. He's in the Hall of Fame. Won 4 Super Bowls for the 49ers, and he calls me and he says, "Pierce, we just picked you in the second round." He said, "That's the good news." He said, "The bad news, we're already looking for somebody better than you."
Oh my God.
So we had a little Dodge Colt, and everybody said it leaned like this when I drove it, but I got in the Dodge Colt, drove to the weight room. I didn't even get to celebrate getting drafted. Drove to the weight room and worked out for 2 hours and then came home. Everybody in my life kept me humble.
Speaking of keeping you humble, we talked about a coach and how you said that man had a way of building you up and tearing you down. And I asked you, I said, do you need tore down? Do you need taken down?
I really believe that we all do. I think what tends to happen when you start having a little success and people start patting you on the back, you tend to start believing the things that they're telling you, that you're good and then you might even think, hey, I'm a little better than somebody else. As far as you might think you're a better person because you're in the NFL. And then life humbles you. So you need somebody, some coach, some mentor in your life that can say, hey, you're nothing special. You've worked hard, you've had some success, but life continues. And we all need to strive to be better, not only better at what we're trying to do, but better people. That's a battle, particularly if you're having success. I worked for a veterinarian growing up. I think I told you this. And I called him after the draft. I said, Dr. McDonald, I said, I just got drafted in the second round. He said, Pierce, I'm happy for you. He said, I want to tell you one thing. Success is a lot harder to handle than failure. And I said, it didn't register. I'm thinking about it. Then I go up to the NFL and I go to a team that's won 2 Super Bowls already. And I see how the guys act and they're carrying themselves. Everybody thinks that they're the reason that they won the Super Bowl. And in my opinion, it was usually number 16, Joe Montana. But everybody thought they were the reason.
Yeah.
And so you need somebody to put you in your place, make you realize we're all part of a team. And, in a marriage and life, we're all a team. On the dog trial field, you and your dog, you're a team. It's not always your dog's fault. I'm new at this, but a lot of times I'll flank my dog and those sheep will run off. I say, man, he was right. What am I doing? He's a teammate. And I gave him the wrong flank. So, I don't know.
So you got, I tell you, that little quote about success being harder to handle than failure it's brilliant. Thank you for that, because that's a gem. That's a nugget. So you get drafted, you're on the 49ers, and you win.
My first 2 years, we won 2 Super Bowls.
That's incredible.
And I thought that's how the season was supposed to end.
Just win.
I thought you win the last game, you go home, and you have a great off season. Well, the off season's not so great when you don't win that last game.
Right.
When you fall short, and the coaches remember that. And when you show up for training camp, the pressure's on them and it funnels down to you, and it needs to. I mean, when you should remember that you lost the last season, not that you won the Super Bowl 2 years before. So it's time to go back to work and build that team back to what it was. And sometimes to do that, you have to tear it down.
So sometimes, even in this sport, like your mentor, your coach, they might tell you, be a little hard on you or what you think, but they're really going to build you back up, aren't they?
They are. It's the same way. Everybody wants to hear that they're doing great, their dog looks great. That doesn't help you. You need to know what you're doing wrong. And there's a lot going wrong when I walk to the post. But I want to hear it all. Otherwise, how are you going to fix it?
It's the kinder thing, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
I had a college coach that was a big mentor of mine. And one time I was walking into the field house. He's sitting in his office. And I thought I'd had a great game. It was on a Monday. And I thought I'd had a great game that Saturday. So I walk in, I peek around there. And he knew how to push my buttons. He said, Holt, how do you think you did? And I looked and I said, Coach, I thought I played pretty good. He said, I'll tell you what, why don't you make me think you played good? So I did like these border collies, and I tucked my tail between my legs and I went and got dressed and got ready for practice. But I came out and I practiced hard.
How did you get here in this sport? Tell me about Dena now, your love. Your eyes are sparkly when you talk about this woman, and I don't blame you. She's a beautiful and a kind soul. So how did you get here?
When we had a border collie, when we started ranching. Neither one of us knew how to run it. She had all the books, the whistles. She said, someday when the kids are gone, we're going to trial these dogs. I've been reading about it. It's going to be awesome. So I said, okay, honey, when they're gone, we're going to do that. Well, one day, about a year after all the kids were gone, she came driving up to the ranch real fast, pulls in. We're going to do a dog trial. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I ran into a guy in Mason. He was an older man. He had a dog. He was putting it in the truck. And he said there's a dog trial in Fredericksburg.
She has the bug.
Yes. We loaded our border collie up, jumped in the car, went to the dog trial. And it happened to be our TSDA president, John Lewis, he holds a trial every fall. And my wife is very shy and timid. So we get there and they say, do you want to do a demonstration and kind of see how it works? And Dena wouldn't do it. She wouldn't walk up to the post. And I said, well, I'll send the dog. That's basically all I was going to do. So I sent Duchess around, and she did real well. I mean,
Yeah.
And after that, we watched it, and we were just hooked.
Yeah.
So we get home, and Dena's talking dogs. And it's been that way ever since. This sport is so addicting, and it's wonderful for us. Our friends are all jealous because we have something that we do together.
Yes.
And
I understand that.
So it's been great for us.
Both of you are absolutely just a bonus for our sport. A trial is better when you're there, and we appreciate you. And I appreciate the time that you took to teach and to give us your knowledge. And it's a good life. Farm Diggity.